President Xi Jinping meets leaders from Russia and other countries in Uzbekistan. A tree falls on several vehicles in Kowloon this morning. City reported almost 9,000 COVID cases. Good evening and welcome to TVB News. President Xi Jinping attended the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit in Uzbekistan today. During his speech, Xi urged other nations to uphold multilateralism and reject a zero-sum game. He had met with his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin, on the sidelines of the meeting yesterday. Caleb Lung has details.
The Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit, also known as the SCO Summit, is taking place in Samarkand, Uzbekistan. Uzbekistan President Shavkat Mirziyoyev greeted leaders of SCO member states, including President Xi Jinping and Russian President Vladimir Putin, when they arrived at the meeting venue. The leaders also posed for a photo. Since its founding in Shanghai in 2001, the SCO now has 8 full members, 4 observer countries and multiple dialogue partners. During today's meeting, Xi Jinping said promoting the development of the SCO will help safeguard the Eurasian continent. He urged other nations to uphold multilateralism and reject a zero-sum game. Xi also said China will help SCO member states to train 2,000 law enforcement officers to prevent foreign powers from inciting color revolutions. Xi also mentioned the upcoming 20th Communist Party of China National Congress. He said it will formulate a new development policy for China and bring new opportunities for the world. Yesterday, Xi Jinping met with Putin on the sidelines of the summit. Xi said China will work with Russia to extend strong mutual support on issues concerning each other's core interests.
面对世界之变、时代之变、历史之变，中方愿同俄方一道努力，体现大国担当，发挥引领作用，为变乱交织的世界注入稳定性和正能量。
Meanwhile, Putin said Russia highly values the balanced position of China when it comes to the Ukraine crisis, adding that Russia understands China's questions and concerns on the matter. Caleb Leung, TVB News.
President Xi also met with his Uzbek counterpart and other leaders on the sidelines of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit. Daniel Rao has the story.
President Xi Jinping met with his Uzbek counterpart Shavkat Mirziyoyev and other leaders on the sidelines of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit in Samarkand, Uzbekistan. Mirziyoyev awarded President Xi with the Order of Friendship Medal on Thursday in recognition of his special contribution to developing friendly relations with Uzbekistan. President Xi also held talks with Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko and Azerbaijan's President Ilham Aliyev. Xi noted this year marks the 30th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between China and Azerbaijan, and that China supports Azerbaijan's development path independently chosen by its people. President Aliyev extended his gratitude to Beijing for providing Azerbaijan with COVID-19 vaccines, which he said fully demonstrates the spirit of solidarity that China has always advocated. President Xi Jinping also held talks with Mongolian President Ukna Kurulsuk. Both sides called for deepening bilateral ties and strengthening cooperation. President Xi said in the meeting that China-Mongolia relations have maintained good momentum. Kurulsuk said Mongolia will firmly uphold the One China policy, adding that his country firmly opposes any interference in China's internal affairs from other nations. Today, President Xi met with Iranian President Ebrahim Raisi and Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. On Iran, President Xi pointed out that China and Iran enjoy a long-standing friendship and that their relations have stood the test of a changing international landscape. And President Xi told Erdogan that Beijing is ready to work with Ankara to elevate their strategic cooperative relations to a higher level. Xi added that China and Turkey share many common interests in defending their respective rights and interests, pursuing development and rejuvenation, and safeguarding international justice. Daniel Rell, TVB News.
Pope Francis was in Kazakhstan Wednesday, just a few miles from President Xi Jinping, but the Chinese leader and the head of the Catholic Church did not meet. The Pope was speaking to press Thursday while flying back to Rome from an interfaith conference in Kazakhstan. He said he had expressed his ability to meet Xi. Chinese officials said the president did not have time during his brief state visit to the country, but expressed thankfulness. The Pope told press he didn't understand China, but respected it, and he regretted that another opportunity to improve ties between China and the Vatican came and went. Meanwhile, Pope Francis also said that supplying weapons to Ukraine is morally acceptable for self-defense. Back locally, 4 cars, including a school bus, was damaged after a 12-meter-high tree collapsed on Perth Street in Ho Man Tin. No students were on the bus, and the driver only suffered minor injuries. Though authorities have yet to respond to the incident, tree experts are calling for the prompt inspection of large trees growing on narrow roads around town. A car camera recorder showed that at around 7:30 this morning, just seconds after some students walked past, a flamboyant tree fell onto a school minibus. It smashed the front of the vehicle. The car next to it was also damaged, and the passenger got off the car. The 12-meter-high flamboyant tree was uprooted and lay flat atop the 2 cars, stretching across 3 traffic lanes on Perth Street. Fallen branches and leaves were everywhere. Luckily, only the driver and the nanny were on board. The driver, surnamed Choi, suffered scratches to his arms but did not need to be hospitalized. Saying he felt very lucky, Choi added, "I was waiting by the traffic lights and a shadow just appeared. The next thing I know, the tree crashed down." The back of the private car in front of the school minibus was heavily distorted after the branches fell onto it. No other drivers were injured. Rescuers arrived on site to remove the tree with a chainsaw. Tree expert Ken So, chief executive of the Conservancy Association, said there were signs of serious decay on the tree's roots, so it slightly tilted towards the road, increasing the chance of collapse. Flamboyant tree, also known as Delarnix regia, or flame of the forest, thrives on tropical islands. Another tree expert said the species, in its fully grown size, would reach up to 20 meters, so it's necessary for the tree to anchor itself to be stable.
I felt very sorry for the tree because it is living in a very narrow space. The tree pit is about 1 meter wide and then about 2 meters long, and this is really too small for such a species. The roots cannot spread out. The soil has been limited on all 4 sides and at the bottom, so that very few roots can penetrate into the soil. This tree is really unsuitable for planting at a narrow pavement area because the basic conditions for soil, for root growth are not there. And if you plant it in such a confined space, you are just planting a potential hazard.
The government's Tree Management Office was set up in 2010 to carry out risk assessment on trees planted in areas with high people flow and traffic at least once a year. Hong Kong logged 8,999 new COVID infections today, including 131 imported cases. Speaking in the daily pandemic briefing, the health authority said they would have to observe the pandemic situation for a while longer before they can make any conclusions as to whether the COVID outbreak has peaked. Christy Khan has details.
The daily COVID caseload in the city dropped below the 10,000 mark this past week. According to the recent effective reproductive number measured by the University of Hong Kong, the number had dropped below 1 for the first time since early August. This means a COVID patient could infect less than 1 person at a given time. But the health authorities said it is too early to say if the city's pandemic situation has peaked.
But
today's number rose a bit again in terms of caseload, more than 8,600. So it might have to do with the Mid-Autumn Festival. So we need to wait for a few days to see whether the number of caseloads continue to drop or what, or whether there's an obvious downward trend or not.
Meanwhile, more than 1,000 COVID cases were reported across 656 schools. A total of 13 classes from 12 schools are advised to suspend in-person lessons for a week after recording coronavirus outbreaks. Separately, the city logged 16 COVID-related deaths today, including a double-jabbed 4-year-old boy. The boy tested positive for the virus on Tuesday, and he was admitted to Tin Shui Wai Hospital yesterday due to shortness of breath. On the same day, he was transferred to Tuen Mun Hospital for treatment. The boy died this morning due to his deteriorating condition.
Because his situation deteriorated very quickly, so we will refer this case to the coroner's court to take up follow-up investigation to find out the reason.
The health officials added the boy suffered from chronic illness. Christy Khan, TVB News.
Former Chief Executive of the Hospital Authority, Pak Yin, said resuming international travel is what people in Hong Kong want. He posted on social media and said some people are trying to derail Hong Kong on the road of normality. But he said he believes the administration will try their best to maintain the city's status as an international financial hub and reopen to the world soon. Secretary for Health Lo Chung Mao didn't respond to Leung's comments, but he said one of the criteria for resuming normal is to make sure the health system in Hong Kong can function normally. And still to come on tonight's news, mass graves were found in a recaptured town in Ukraine. And Hong Kong Marathon is off, but Cross Harbour Swim is on. Welcome back to TVB News. In Ukraine, mass graves have been found in a forest near Izium, an area recently recaptured from Russian forces. Ukrainian authorities are expected to begin recovering bodies soon from the site. Some of the images may be unpleasant. Tracy Furness reports.
A burial site containing hundreds of graves was discovered close to Izium after a rapid counter-offensive by Ukrainian forces that liberated the northeastern city. President Volodymyr Zelensky said this would show the world what the Russian occupation has led to. Ukrainian official Oleg Katenko, who is the Commissioner for Issues of Missing Persons under Special Circumstances, said that the crosses are civilians who died and are buried here. We will do DNA once the bodies have been exhumed. Meanwhile, Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova warned the US on sending missiles to the Ukraine. She said if Washington makes the decision to ship longer-range missiles to Ukraine, it would cross a red line, becoming directly involved in the conflict. In Kiev, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen met with President Zelensky. A plaque bearing her name was cemented into the floor of the square to honor the EC president. She told the press how Europe would help displace Ukrainians.
We have earmarked already 150 million euros to make sure that the internally displaced people here in Ukraine have shelter. And I'm happy to announce that there will be another 100 million to support schools so that the damages done by the war in those schools can be repaired in a short term.
In a sign of further EU commitment, the European Parliament have approved a €5 billion loan to Ukraine, the key part of a €9 billion package to offset the costs of war. Tracy Furness, TVB News.
U.S. President Joe Biden has signed an executive order which officials say will bolster oversight by the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States. The committee is an interagency group tasked with reviewing deals and mergers involving foreign people and entities. The White House said the new order is not targeted towards any particular country, but it comes amid growing concern among U.S. officials about China's investments in the U.S. technology sector and other industries. The committee is made up of members of the Departments of State, Defense, Justice, Commerce, Energy, and Homeland Security. It is led by the Treasury Secretary. The committee sends its findings and recommendations to the president, who has the power to suspend or prohibit a deal. The White House has struck a last-minute deal trying to avert a national rail strike that would have seriously disrupted supply chains across the United States. This report from NBC News.
The tentative agreement keeps 7,000 freight trains on the tracks, the American economy, our supply chain chugging along, and nationwide passenger service on the rails after a grueling 20-hour negotiation session with White House leaders, the unions representing some 60,000 active freight train conductors and engineers reached an 11th-hour deal at 2 a.m. with rail companies.
To the American people, this agreement can avert the significant damage that any shutdown would have brought.
With a vote from union members expected to ratify the deal, conductors and engineers are set to receive annual bonuses totaling $5,000 over a 5-year term and a staggered pay increase year after year, amounting to a 24% raise.
It's about quality of life. It's about the ability to actually take care of your family, to take days off when you need the opportunity to.
As a strike threatened to disrupt the supply chain exactly 100 days before Christmas, the cost to the U.S. economy could have soared to $2 billion a day. Still, workers held their ground.
All across the country, workers are rising up. They're fed up with low wages, unsafe work conditions, and they see record profits on the corporate ledgers.
Still, the handshake agreement did come at a cost. Because 97% of the rails they ride on are owned by freight companies, yesterday Amtrak, fearing a strike, canceled all of their long-distance routes. By tomorrow, service on the web of rails will be restored, but not soon enough for passengers like David Paperman and his wife.
We're in Eugene Airport getting ready
who
to board
today
our
are flying instead of riding 850 miles when their trip was canceled at the last minute.
They saw the train coming in the tunnel, and they didn't tell us.
Tonight a setback for some, but our nation now on track to keep goods and passengers moving.
Back in Hong Kong again, the government gazetted a new version of the application for registration of a trade union. The signatory of the application must declare the union will not engage in any acts that may endanger national security. The new version will take effect starting Monday. The declaration noted that the registration shall be void if any of the purposes of the trade union is deemed unlawful. The Registrar of Trade Unions also has the rights to cancel the registration of a trade union if it's being used for any unlawful purpose. The Hong Kong Marathon 2022 has been cancelled. Set to be held in November, the organisers of the marathon have yet to receive a green light from the government to hold the event because of the local epidemic situation. The organisers said there may not be enough time for runners and other stakeholders to prepare, so that's why they decided to call off the race. Meanwhile, the Cross Harbour Race was given the nod to take place on October 23rd, with the number of swimmers capped at 1,500 people. Participants must be Blue Health Code holders. The race will start at Golden Bohemia Square Public Pier in Wan Chai and finish at the Avenue of Stars in Tsim Sha Tsui. Those interested in participating in the race have until next Friday to apply starting 11 a.m. tomorrow. But swimmers must hold a Blue Health Code and show negative results using both PCR and RAT before participating. The Swimming Association's president, Ronnie Wong, thanked its sponsor and the government for their support for the event. That's after the group had previously been informed 2 weeks ago that the number of swimmers would be capped at around 400. That's the news. Thanks for watching.